So I'm really excited to be with you all. And I thank you so much for just opening up with me. I'd like us all to just start with a deep breath. Just take a deep breath wherever you are. Probably I'm doing this more for myself than for you. And get yourself grounded. Just know that wherever you are in this moment and time, you are absolutely safe. So let yourself just say out loud, I am safe, and breathe that in. Breathe that right into your body. Obviously, I can say what everybody else has been saying for the last couple of months. You know, the world is crazy and we're a part of it. But what's not crazy and what's not different is that who we are internally. Who we are internally is still the light that we were born to be. You know, my favorite thing is to talk about people's ta-da, right? The ta-da that's inside of you, that was inside of each one of us. It's the life force that we were born with that's here right now with us. So the world can flip itself upside down, spin around, have viruses, not have viruses, have a zillion different languages, but every single one of us on the planet has the ta-da inside. So take a deep breath. I am safe. I am safe because who I am inside has not changed. So I talk about giving you an hour free of, or give you some freedom from anxiety. There's a short little definition that I have and a theory I have about anxiety, and that is that anxiety is when a truth is rising from your belly, a truth is rising from your belly, and your ego, your personality is saying, not going there. Nope, not going there. Don't want to see that. And that's what stops us. We freeze right here. And what we've all been taught to do over and over and over again is to run from it. Deaden it. We deaden it with alcohol. We deaden it with food. We deaden it with shopping. We deaden it with working. We deaden it with minding other people's business. We deaden it with looking for somebody else to give us the answers. No matter what anxiety that you are feeling or I am feeling, it has to do with there's a truth inside of us that wants to surface, and what we want to do is run away from it. Because very often what that truth is some change is happening for us. Some way of being different than we've been before. Like for me, doing these, moving my practice online. So I've taken this really wonderful course. I'm still involved in it. It's worse than going to grad school because it has all this technology with it. Putting my practice, my courses online. And what's the truth is that's coming up for me is that I have to master this technology, and I don't want to do it. I want it to like just stop. I don't want to push another link. I don't want to learn another software. I don't want to do it. And yet there's this really strong call inside of me to move out into the world and help more people. I can help more people. And obviously with this coronavirus thing, this Zoom is perfect. It's absolutely such a blessing and a gift to all of us that who am I to say that I'm not going to learn how to do this? So I can use wonderful excuses. I can say things like, I'm too old for this. This is too hard. I just want to read a book. I definitely want to eat carbs. It'll be a whole lot easier. And yet there's this truth inside that says, come on and learn this stuff and move out into the world in a way that you're not used to being there. So breathe in. So just because it's change doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's different. And for most of us, we're afraid of it. We're so afraid of change. One of the things I speak about in my new book, well, it's not so new anymore, it's a couple of years old, is about, I put up 5 Karens in the book, and it's talking about how you know you're on the spiritual path. You know, a Karen is that stack of rocks that you see when you go hiking, and it doesn't say this is the way to go. It just says you're on the path. So if you're on a path to consciousness, which I think is the most positive way we all can live, consciously understanding or being aware of, what am I doing here on this planet? You know, what's my story here? What's going on with me? How am I experiencing this? That's consciousness. And 5 of the Karens that I suggest tell you you're on the right path to consciousness. One of the big ones is getting used to temporary. Everything on this flipping planet is temporary, including you and me. What's not temporary is the light that we are. And that's been measured by science. You know, when we leave these bodies, science can measure the energy that leaves with us, you know, the energy that is us. That's the only thing that's permanent. That's the only thing that's permanent. And everything else is changing. So right now, the whole flipping world's in a collective awareness that this is big change going on. You know, I was thinking about it this morning when I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you guys is doing this kind of stuff, all this Zoom, what does that say about retail offices? Like how many therapists and doctors are doing all the telemed, you know, how many therapists are going to be doing their practices online, right? I mean, I do a lot of clients right now on FaceTime and on Messenger, I do people in other parts of the world, and that's all done on WhatsApp. So just that one thing about like retail, well, we all know Amazon's taken over all the brick and mortar stores. Change is happening, and we can like push against it. We can not like it. We can jump up and down, have our little temper tantrums, and change is going to move on anyway. That's the river of life. It's going to move on. And when we try to disconnect from the anxiety, because the anxiety is telling us that we are experiencing change and we don't like it. We want familiar. We will take familiar before we will take good stuff. Because we have this illusion that somehow if it's familiar, we're controlling it. And anxiety is that big clue from our consciousness saying, hello, things are changing. You're not getting it the way you used to get it. It's going to be different. It is different. You got to wake up. And one of the ways that I know that we can wake up to it is through journaling. Journaling is about listening to what's going on inside of us. I call journaling now, because I'm so cool and I'm on the internet working with all these millennials, the internal selfie. Journaling is an internal selfie. We're looking at what's going on inside of us. Take a deep breath. It's time for us I don't care what age you are. I know I have some young people on this. Whatever age you are, it's time to go look inside and see where your truth is. Take a deep breath. I hope everybody brought some online paper and a pen with them, because we're going to do some writing. I also want to tell you that later on, I'm going to give you a chance to ask me some questions, okay? And we're going to be on this until 11 o'clock. And you don't have to ask permission to go to the bathroom, okay? Just don't take us with you, all right? I can't tell you how many times I've been on this stuff and heard toilets flush in the background. I love this. I mean, I think I'm getting to like this medium. Since I've started taking my class, I'm on a class with 2,500 millennials and me. It's just a crack up. They call me cute. When you're 74, you're cute. So where was I? Okay. So about paying attention to what's going on inside you. So the first thing I want you to do is, and Uma's going to give us a little bit of music when we do some writing. We're going to have about 3 writes, okay? And I'll give you about like 5 minutes. I'll watch the clock and I'll let you know when you come back. You are not going to have to read this writing to anyone. I'll give some people an opportunity to do that if they want to, but you don't have to read it or share it with anyone. I just want you not to hold back because you're afraid to share it with yourself. When I advertised this in the little video, I told you that journaling is not about writing. It's about listening. It's about listening to yourself. It's about recording what you're hearing yourself say. It's about going in this way, taking the inner selfie. Okay? So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to make a list of what you're afraid of. I am afraid, fill in the blank. I am afraid, fill in the blank. Keep rewriting the words, I am afraid, and breathe in. If you stop from writing something down, have a noticing. Notice, I don't want to write that. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to own that. One of the things I've noticed for me at 74 is I don't want to talk about death. I don't, and I'm going to be doing some teaching on meaningful aging. And I know that one of the things I have to talk about is death. And I can watch myself just avoid it and avoid it and avoid it, right? And then when I've gotten into it and I've journaled about it, I've realized it's brought me closer to my higher power. It's brought me closer to what I believe is important in my life. But you've got things that you don't want to talk about, that you don't want to hear yourself talk about. So I'm going to close my mouth now, and I'm going to watch the clock, and I'm going to give you like maybe 4 minutes to write. Make your list, take a deep breath, and Uma's going to give you a little bit of music. Okay, begin to make your last couple of entries. Take a deep breath. So now you made a list. There could have been more. I want you to now write without music. You don't have to put the music on, Uma. I want you now to write, what did I hear I wouldn't talk about? What did I hear I wouldn't write down? What did I hear I danced away from? So kind of make a line and then write that down. Just answer that question. Trust whatever comes up for you. That's a big part of this consciousness, is trusting what you feel, trusting what you hear inside you. If you're not under the influence of alcohol or drugs, you can pay attention to what you're saying or what's being said inside you. What did I not want to write about? You guys can put your hands up if you're done, so I can get an idea that you've had enough time. I'll give you another 30 seconds. Okay, so my goal for this hour that we're spending together, well, first of all, my goal was maybe 5 people would show up and I could get practice, right? So there's 53 of you online right now, which is blowing me right out of the water. My goal for this is that you guys learn to just have, this is just like being at the gym for journaling. I just want you to have the experience of just being with yourself and the writing, to just realize this is not, with the journaling, this is not about grammar, it's not about an audience, it's not about editing, it's not about spelling, it's about listening and then putting that out on paper. If you have someone in your life that you trust and feel really safe with, you know, you might want to read some of your journaling once in a while out loud, but it's not for them to critique, it's for you to hear it out loud. Lots of times I just read it out loud to myself so I can hear it. I've been journaling ever since I read Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, about 30 years ago. And when I got into recovery, it was one of the tools that I used in recovery. And it's just been a blessing. It's just been a blessing. I would not have achieved anything that I've achieved if I hadn't, or have the relationship I have with my higher power, which I like to call source. I would not have the relationship I have with source. I would not have the relationship I have with myself. So just keep breathing and just keep listening to yourself, okay? This other thing that I want to share with you about the fear and the anxiety is when we disconnect from our feelings, that's the ultimate cause of loneliness. That's the ultimate cause of discouragement, is that we've disconnected from us. Because only when we're completely connected to that tada that is inside of us, that's our core, only when we're connected to that do we feel complete. It doesn't matter if there's 25 people in the room. It doesn't matter if we have a great lover. It doesn't matter if our kids adore us. We can't get that inside of us. We can't receive it and feel it if we're not connected to ourselves. discouragement, disappointment, not disappointment so much, but discouragement, loneliness, that feeling of abandonment, that's in here. And it's us disconnecting from us. The next thing I want you guys to look at, another one of the Karen's in my book is about getting in touch with our intuition and learning to trust it. I want you to write right now about a time when you did not listen to your intuition. You didn't listen to your intuition. Write about how that worked for you. You only have to do a few sentences, but what's the first thought that comes to mind when you say, I didn't listen to myself? Why didn't I listen to myself? It could be as simple as like leaving the car keys somewhere because you didn't take a moment to find them. Or it could have meant you married the wrong person because you didn't listen to yourself the night before the wedding. So one time when you didn't listen to yourself, take a deep breath. Okay, so draw a line underneath that. Oh, another recommendation that I make, besides writing on unlined paper, is that you date. Whenever you enter anything into your journal, just date that date that you wrote it, that's the day you wrote it. Because when you go back and look at this, it's really helpful to see where you were at the time. You think you'll remember, but you don't. And my prayer for you is that whatever you're using for a journal is that becomes one of your best friends. It's your confidant. It's where you can go when you don't know where else to go. It can also be a place you go to celebrate, to celebrate the joy and gratitude and to stand in possibility or to do a to-do list. It's like where you just put it all. It's where I go in the middle of the night when I can't sleep. Okay, so you wrote about your intuition and you wrote about a time when you didn't listen and what happened. Now I'd like you to write about what is that intuition? What is that process in your body? What does that feel like? Not why do I feel it, but what. Whenever you say why takes you to your head, and in your head you're in a bad neighborhood. In your head you're in the chatter, ba 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 ba. In your intuition, you're in some clarity. I know for me, where I feel my intuition, it's I call it the knowing, like I know
Muted
something.
from my thing and I can't get in.
I'm sorry?
I'm muted somehow on my webinar and I can't get in. Control,
what are you listening with?
Command Shift. Well,
Okay. All right. So what was I saying? So my intuition, I call it my knowing with a capital K. It feels like a truth inside of me. Like when I left my corporate life and I took on having my own private practice, I was so scared to do it. And yet there's this knowing inside of me. I needed to come join David at Pathways. And that was like giving up the 401k, giving up the paid vacation, giving up what was the illusion of security. I gave that up. And I can remember for a month going back and forth to work and just should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? In my private practice, people were asking me to work with them. And so I was getting too many people at nights and weekends and working full-time days. Something had to go. And there was this knowing inside of me, yeah, I had to let it go. And it was terrifying, because letting a paid job in a corporation go for some wackadoodle woo-woo private practice was I out of my flipping mind. And it wasn't my mind that was telling me, it was my gut, it was my intuition that was telling me. And I can remember going into my office the day that I decided to turn in my my resignation, and everything inside me said, today's the day, turn it in. I was so confident. I wrote it out. I turned it into my boss. I went back. It was time to leave that day. I was just sure I had made the right choice. And in the car, I got into the worst panic attack on the way home, thinking like, holy cow. I had gone against everything my blue-collar family had taught me. You don't give up a real job to go work for yourself. And yet the knowing was always there, and the knowing was always down here in my chest and in my belly. Anyway, to make a short story long, which is one of my favorite things to do, I gave it up. I came into my private practice, and about 3 months later, that company was bought out by another company, and I would have been without a job. It was just like, oh my word, you know, and part of my job would have been, because I worked in human resources, part of my job would have been to fire a bunch of people. And then when I was done doing that, I would have turned around and they would have fired me. You know, I would have gotten to do all the dirty work, and then I would have been out the door. Now, every knowing that we have isn't necessarily that dramatic. But I'm grateful that at the time I was a few years sober and I was listening to myself. My big mistakes always come when I do not listen to myself and I don't trust myself. And you get connected with your breath, which is why I'm always saying, breathe. Where do you feel it? Just breathe inside. We have been taught over and over again to run, that somebody else has the answers for us. Somebody else is smarter than us. Somebody else has the bigger answers. The other thing we've been taught is we've been taught to we have these hallmark pictures of how it's supposed to look. This is the way Christmas is supposed to look. This is the way birthdays are supposed to look. This is the way retirement's supposed to look. This is the way family dinners are supposed to look. Well, there is no this is the way. There's no this is the way. What works for us? Okay, what works for us? I know when my kids got older and they stopped coming home for Christmas because they had other lives. Some of what they were doing I agreed with, some I didn't agree with. But I can remember having that like heartbreak, like, oh my God, I must have failed as a mother. We're not doing it the way the book says we're supposed to do it. And when I got over myself and got more into, there is no picture. Where are you today? What works today? You know, change is different than transition. Transition is when things are changing, but you have to re-identify yourself. That's transition. Change is just, you know, I'm driving a new car, so I have to adjust a few things, but I don't personally have to change. Transition is when I have to change my identity. Like, I'm not the mother of young people anymore, and they're not young, and they have their own way of, they need to do things. That's huge for us. And the way you get a clue about the transition that you're in is if you're listening to your gut, if you're listening to your intuition, if you're having these conversations with yourself. Anxiety is always us jamming it up, just plugging it up, because we don't want it to be that way. We want it to be different. And this life that we're in is a river. It's always, always flowing and moving. Take a little bit of a breath. And let me open it up to if anybody has any questions or comments. I see some comments coming up here. Do you see any comments you want me to respond to, Uma?
I think they're just general comments. I think if you want to say something, you can just unmute your mic, or you can physically raise your hand, or you can raise your hand in Zoom. So any of those work.
Do you see anybody with their hand up? Greg, can you unmute Greg?
Hi.
Hi, hon. It's so good
Hi.
to see you.
You too.
Hi, Greg.
Hi. How you doing? I just have a question. You were talking earlier about going to college and everybody's a millennial. How do you justify that in your head? How do you keep going, know that everybody around you is in their 20s and you're, a lot older doing the same course?
Because there's a gut inside me. There's just this gut instinct that I wanted a shot at this. I wanted the shot at this. I wanted to find out what was coming on, how are people doing their programs online? I guess I don't have to justify it. I guess I have to get over my my ego and my pride. I mean, like when I go on video, I don't look like some of these young women who go on video and they look like flipping movie stars, And the first few videos I did, I thought, oh my Lord, I've got a great face for radio, It was just awful. It was so flipping hard. And then I got a lot of response from really supportive people saying, I really enjoyed your 3-minute video. I got something out of it. And it's like, how can I let my ego stop me from doing service, right? Like if we hide our gifts, and when we don't listen to our intuition, we are hiding our gifts. Who are we to do that? We came here with gifts and talents, and they're ours to share. And that's not being cocky, but at 74, I know what I can teach, and I want to learn more about how I can be out there.
Yeah, I think my ego is always telling me, oh, you're too old to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would be the right age to do whatever it is you want to do?
Yeah, the world's missing out on your experiences if you don't speak.
When I was in South Africa, when I got invited to go to South Africa, and I worked for a month with abused women, right? What I remembered when I got there was when I was young, when I was about 19 and I was in a crazy marriage, I made some great big mistakes, right? I wanted to do the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps was new then, and I thought, wow, I missed it. I blew that opportunity. I'm married, I have kids. I'll never be free to go do the Peace Corps. So when I was over in South Africa, I was 71, and I'd been invited because they saw me do something online. I taught a class for a friend, and they saw me do it, and they asked me if I would, I started working with women. They asked me if I'd come over. I did a GoFundMe. A lot of you people helped support me to get over there. But when I was over there doing the work, I had this big aha. And what it was, Greg, was God waited for me to have something to offer when I got to South Africa. At 71, I had so much more to offer than I had at 19. Maybe at 19, I would have had energy, but at 71, I had wisdom. I really had something to give. And I felt so blessed. This is, I was in the right place at the right time. It was a real wonderful, wonderful blessing. So if I said, people were panicked, oh my God, you can't go there all by yourself. It's too dangerous. And it's like, whatever, it's mine to do. I knew it was mine to do. So who are you to hold back your gifts? And as Karen just said in the comments, millennials are looking for elders. They're looking for wisdom. They're looking for the experience and the strength you have. When my stepdad died at 94 a couple of years ago, he had so many young friends because they loved the woodworking stuff that he could teach them. And they were picking him up all the time to bring him over to projects they wanted him to work on, and he didn't necessarily do the work, but he had a lot of information for them. And he also modeled for them, you never have to stop learning, you never have to stop doing. So when he died, he had a huge amount of people in the church for him. And most 90-year-olds, when they die, they don't get a lot of people in the church because they've made their lives smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Their friends have died, but he kept reinventing himself. He really did. He even dated online dating at like 89. He did. And he kept saying, he would meet these women and he would say, she was really old.
I mean, he doesn't need to do that.
Oh, you don't want your husband online dating?
He doesn't need to do that.
I'm writing that one down.
Are there any other, did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, someone else?
Yes, there's 2 comments in the chat. There's one question from Monica. The overwhelm of having to be alone so much, can you address that? It's the first question.
Well, before alone, Monica, as a single woman, you mean? And
Well, so I'm going to just speak from, I just moved to Orlando. I just have my new apartment. I'm by myself. I've never really lived alone before in my life. And I have a huge community here from Landmark. I'm now a course supervisor with Landmark, but I just feel like this confinement of having to be alone all the time. I mean, I can go out and walk and everything, but
you mean with
this
quarantine?
thing,
Oh.
it's like really not, I'm really struggling with that.
Oh yeah. Oh, with the quarantine. Oh, absolutely. I wasn't thinking in those terms. Absolutely. Well, you know, I thank you God for Zoom, right? We had company last night for dinner over Zoom. You know, we met them at their dinner table and we were at our dinner table. And I think it's not, I'm not trying to minimize how hard it is to be in the house by yourself all the time. I think it's very hard, but I'm here with a husband and it's hard for both of us too. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like the answer if you have a partner at home because our schedules are completely weird. I've missed a couple of calls on for clients because I couldn't remember what flipping day it was. I mean, it's like, the world is so screwed up in your life because all the things that you have as a reference point you don't have. And I have been journaling my brains out, literally. I've been journaling and journaling and journaling, talking to God or source or whatever you want to call it. What is this about? What am I supposed to learn from this? Have there been any things that you've learned from it, Monica, this time with you?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I have a boyfriend and we're going through a lot right now too, but it's like really getting that I'm not alone. I am on Zoom all the time, you know, but it's just the facing the day and the end of the day, I'm still here. It's me and the TV, or it's me and myself. And I'm from a big family and I have, you know, I lived in community for 12 years. So I just really, I don't like it. And I do know it's good for me. It's creating a sense of strength and inner strength within myself, and you know, reaching out and building my
coaching business. But
it's really uncomfortable, you know.
And then, well, just the physicalness of being alone. Nobody's hugging you. There's nobody to snuggle with. There's nobody to touch.
Yeah, I was a massage therapist. I mean, I know the value of touch, and we have to stay so separate. I just feel like it's a challenge for all of us in a way, you know, that we probably have never had to deal with before as a society, as a world. You know?
Absolutely. And have you cried about it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think there are lots of other people who can agree. And it's getting long and we don't know when it's going to end, right?
Yeah, uncertainty, not knowing what's tomorrow, what's it going to be. Is this going to last for 3 months? Is this going to last? How long is this going to go? You know, and yeah, I think it's terrifying.
So what's the fear say?
I'll never, I'm afraid I'll be alone forever.
Because it feels like forever.
Yeah.
So where do you feel that in your body?
My solar plexus.
So put your hand right there, honey. And just breathe into that. I will be alone forever. Just breathe in there. What are you feeling when you're breathing in there, hon? So many other people are identifying with you right now.
Yeah, it's pain, it's hurt, it's separation, loneliness.
Does it feel familiar? Like there might have been another time in your life when you have felt this?
Yeah, there's been lots of moments, like when I left for college.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it started, panic attack when I left for college.
So I would encourage you, hon, to write that story out in your journal.
Okay.
So when you go in, and thank you for being brave enough to do this, when you go into your solar plexus and you feel that, when have I felt this before in my life? The one thing we can do today is we can help clean up the history around these feelings. You know,
Okay.
like some of that loneliness that we feel totally belongs to right now, okay? And then so much more of it belongs to our history. There's grief in some of those old stories that just need to be released. I was noticing that, and you notice that in your journal if you let yourself just go in there and breathe into it. I noticed the other day that I was just feeling so much disappointment because we usually go to Florida for a couple of weeks this time of year, and it's the thing we work towards, and then the winter ends when we're back, it's done, and we have all these places down there we love to go, and the Airbnb we had to let go of and everything. And I kept thinking, oh my God, Irene, so many people have it so much worse than you. You have to let go of a couple of weeks at the beach, get over your little first world self, right? And then it was like, yeah, but that disappointment just wouldn't leave. I just kept feeling the disappointment. And as I journaled about it, I realized there was a lot of disappointments as a kid. Like I didn't, we were pretty poor. So there was a lot of things that didn't happen that I had hoped would happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to give that voice. And when I gave that voice, I kind of right-sized things. The disappointment, instead of feeling like this is going to go on forever, it's never going to end, I'm never going to get what I want, it started to move more into, this is a bummer. Find some other way to move this energy. Find some other way to move this energy. Does that help a little bit, honey?
Yeah.
Good.
Just being able to voice it and say it out loud. And so, you just see that I'm not alone in this, but also, yeah. Yeah.
We can discharge a lot of the energy.
Disappointment, the disappointment too. Like my boyfriend and I aren't getting along right now. It's like, really? Like I need you right now. Like, but it's just very, another thing on top of another thing is what it feels like.
Yeah.
So yeah, writing, it will help to write it out.
Good. And that's that whole business about breathing in and saying, what am I feeling? And have I experienced this feeling before? And what kind of image comes up? And as soon as the image, like you've got that college image came up, believe that and like unload that story and come home to you with compassion. Anybody else have any questions out there, Uma?
Yes, there's a common question. Two people ask a similar question, which is, with all, here, let me pull up this. Basically, with all the fear around the virus, there's like if someone coughs or sneezes, there's this fear that maybe I have the virus. So can you address that anxiety that comes up when like a seeming symptom of sickness happens?
I have this wonderful friend. She's a doctor at the Leahy Clinic, and she's responsible for, she's high up at the Leahy Clinic, and she's a part of the response team for the Leahy Clinic. And so we're close, and she kept FaceTiming me and saying, are you being careful? Are you being careful? You're washing your hands. You're old. It's like, like anybody that knows your age is like really worried about you right now. Anyway, she got the virus. Okay. So I've been talking to her with the virus. And what she said is, number one, it's not that serious for most people. There's, it's on a spectrum, obviously. And for her, it was a dry cough that started in her throat. She definitely tested, she definitely has it. It's a dry cough that started in the back of her throat, and then it's fever, and then it's achiness and a big fatigue. That was like the original stuff for her, and that's how it went on. If you are somebody who has an underlying cause like asthma or heart condition or, something else more serious, and obviously you got to get it checked out. But I think for a lot of us, what it is just fear, just pure fear, because we feel like it's all around us. Like, how many times do you wash your hands and then you wash the package and then you wash your hands after you wash the package, and then what do you do with the cloth that you wear? You've seen those things on Facebook where you go around in a flipping circle, right? So you got to breathe in really, really deeply, and write about the fear. Louis Pasteur said, it's not so much that you have to worry about the bacteria, but you need to be more concerned about the host. Like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you giving yourself vitamin C? Are you keeping yourself hydrated? Are you moving outside and breathing some fresh air? Are you, in AA and the 12 steps that I belong to, can you call somebody else and do some service? Can you do some service over Zoom for somebody else? Text somebody and send them a prayer or see how they're doing. Because lots of times when we get out of ourselves, all of a sudden those symptoms disappear, when we're not so self-focused. And the self-focused I'm talking about is that self-focus that stays up here in your head, the same blah, 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 blah. The reflection and the coming home to yourself is all below your neck. It's around your heart. It's around your solar plexus, where you're really listening to you. And if the fear is coming from there, look at it. What's the fear of getting the illness? What's your fear of getting the illness? Are you afraid to die? Are you afraid, what? What's your fear? Write about it. Anyone else have any comments that they'd like to share about that? I'm certainly not the answer to the virus. Uma?
I know that Mary Johnson has had her hand up for a while.
Sure.
Wow. Hi, Irene. I met you in Boston, and I took a picture with you because my sister read your book. I don't know.
Oh, right. I'm looking for you. I'm trying to find you on the screen.
Oh, I don't know how you do that with Zoom. I think you should look for a green box that's lit up, because that's when I'm talking. I just want to thank you so much, because I used to journal all the time, and I just got so wrapped up in reacting to everything that I haven't been journaling. So thank you so much for this hour reminder. And I was a little bummed because the ACIM conference is being canceled in May in LA, but I look forward to seeing you again in Washington next year. And you're awesome. Thanks.
Oh, thanks. And you have no idea how you made me feel. So I kept getting, when we were at that conference last year, and I kept, before that, it was right before I joined this course that I'm involved in now, right? And it's an expensive course, and it was a big commitment. And I kept saying, oh God, what am I doing? I mean, who cares, Irene? Your clients already know you, do you really need to get online, blah, blah, blah. And then you do. And then, and then you met me at the table, and we didn't know each other. You said, nope. And I don't know, I started talking to somebody at the table about my book, and then, because it's always about me, right? And then, and then you said, I think my sister read your book. And my first thought was, oh, she must have read something else. It couldn't have been my book she read, because
No, it was your book.
And then you said, yeah, it was, right? And then I thought, And what the message I got was, see, you touch people in ways you don't even know you touch them. We all touch people in ways we don't know we touch them. So when I was hoping that maybe 5 people might show up on this, and I'm looking at the numbers and it's 53, I'm like, holy cow, I had no idea. And I love that you came online. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. Take care.
Okay.
We have a question from Jackie, and then also Deb had her hand raised. So
Okay, we'll take these 2 more questions, and then I want to give you guys a little bit more of a right. Jackie, is that Jackie Watson?
Jackie Watson says, I'm almost 50. I'm looking for advice for what I should be doing now that I have had so much freedom of time to do whatever. I'm feeling like now I need to pay attention to making the most of my time going forward.
And is making the most of your time meaning how can I perform? What can I do rather than how can I be? You know?
I didn't know I was asking a question. I was kind of chiming in with when people were, like you were saying, you know, I'm with all these millennials and, you know, and then I think it was, I don't remember the gentleman's name saying, you know, I don't want to talk, you know, being older and not wanting to share. I'm like, you need to share because I'm looking for answers of what's next, you know? So I'm saying that, you know, I've had this whole freedom to be an artist and everything. And now I'm like, well, I need to buckle down and make the most of things. And what do I need to think about with being a mom of kids? And I'm even a grandmother. I have little kids and I have older kids that are 30 and I'm 50, and you know, I'm wanting to do what's right for everyone and be available, but also how do you still fulfill your own life, but you know, take care of everyone else.
So back to journaling, because I teach breathing and journaling, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like this 2-note song all the time. So if you give yourself 15 minutes, like at least every other day, to journal about what you want, just with I want, fill in the blank, I want, that's what I was going to have you guys do anyway. I want, fill in the blank, I want, fill in the blank. And then when you look at those wants, right? You look at those wants. Another word to use is I long for. Write this one down, everybody. I long for. I long for. Longing tells you what you're aching for. When you look at your want list, also ask yourself, what experience do I want from that? What experience do I want from that? Whatever that thing is. Like somebody was telling me that her husband wanted a fancy suit, and he didn't need to have a fancy suit because his work didn't call for that, right? And she was like, we can't spend the money. We can't spend the money. So her fear of spending came up. But when she asked him, like, well, what would you want why do you want that suit? And he said, because I never believed I deserved anything like that. You know, I grew up poor, so it's like, who am I to have a suit? That's other people. It was a whole lot more to him than just blowing some money on an expensive suit. Mm-hmm. You know, it was about self-esteem, and it was about self-confidence, and it was about, he's in college now as an adult, so he's working towards stuff he never believed he would be working towards. The suit would just say, yeah, it's okay for me to have that, like other guys that I used to look up to when I was younger. So find that out for yourself in the want list. But the longing is really important. You know, what am I longing for? Because when we pay attention to the longing, we get what it is life brought us here to do. So there's 5 things the soul wants, okay? And you can argue with this. I can't prove it to you in science. I've just read this by one of my mentors, and I just totally agree with her. What she says is we long to connect with source, whatever the source is, you know, which is why some of us just love being in the forest or in the woods or on the water or whatever. We feel a connection, or in a yoga class or singing or whatever we do that gives us a sense of connection to something more than ourselves. We need to commit to values. We know what's important to us, what we stand for, what matters to us. We need to feel a sense of purpose, that we are serving, that we are, that it matters and counts that we're here on the planet, that we have something to give and offer. We need to express ourselves. We need to have a voice. And the first place we listen to that voice can be in listening to in the journaling. And finding that voice and expressing it when we're afraid makes us feel safer on the planet. I'm not talking about being a bitch or just being mean or whatever, you know, but we go to those places because we've held on to our voice way, way too long. But when we find our voices, when we express what we need to express, we start finding our completeness, our wholeness. And the last one is to create. We need to create something. We need to feel something concrete about what we've been about. This isn't about a to-do list. This is about a being list, a being in completeness. So I got about 2 more minutes if you guys don't mind, but you can leave whenever you want. There was someone else who had a question, right, Uma?
She is okay. She doesn't need to ask a question.
Oh, okay. All right. So I want you guys to make a list right now that I hope that you would go to later on and just fill out even more. I long for, fill in the blank. I long for, we can have some music with this. We'll do it for 2 minutes. I will end like by 10 past, okay? And you certainly can leave the meeting, guys, if you want to. I long for. Take a deep breath. Let yourselves come on back. I want you to put some words down on paper about what are you feeling like? What's it feeling like below your neck, in your chest, in your belly right now? Do some feeling words. How deep can you take your breath? When you're journaling and you're looking for, a prompt or what to write about, if you breathe in and you feel your breath hesitate on the way down to your belly, put your hand on that place where it hesitates and just notice. Just notice if there's a word stuck in there, or there's a memory stuck in there, or there's an idea stuck in there. Just have a noticing. If you have a higher power or something bigger than yourself that you believe in, write down on your paper what you call that. Like I told you, I call it source because I can get hung up on the word God. But what do you call it? nature, life, God. What do you call it? So I'd encourage you, when you do your writing, that you write to this, write to whatever this is for you. I start mine in the morning with, Dear Source, I remember that you're here, whatever you are. And these are the ways in which I feel your presence. So I'm really feeling the presence of Source right now. So I slept about 2 hours last night because I was so nervous about doing this. Uma knows. She's been holding my hand for about 3 weeks, talking me into this. And I just kept thinking, well, when I teach classes, when I teach workshops, when I do seminars, people are here with me and I get to feel their energy. And I cannot tell you guys how much I feel all of your energy and all of your support. I'm like brought to like, what made me think that I wouldn't feel your energy just because you're not in this room with me? How silly is that? I see your faces. I have so many memories of so many of you. Some of you are brand new to me. I just feel so blessed to be connected with you all. Because what you did was you said, I'm stepping up. I'm turning over my willingness. I'm putting forth my willingness to try something different, to open myself up to learn something. I'm doing that for me. You each showed up for yourselves. In that showing up for yourself, which is what you do when you journal on a regular basis, is that you tell yourself you matter and you count. When you use your voice, you're letting yourself know that you matter and you count. So I will be back online again soon. I'll let you all know. And you can unsubscribe if you'd like to from my list. I don't try to put too much stuff out there, but I will let you know, and I'll be doing more things online. So thank you all for coming. And this is going to be recorded. And I think I can let people have the recording if they want it. Right, Uma? Is that true?
Yes, it may take a little while. We just like prepare it to be shared, but yes, we will share the recording. Did you want to tell Irene, did you want to tell people about next week or later?
Later, because I don't have the details, okay? Right.
Okay, sounds good. There are some people who still have questions if they want to stay on
Thank
later.
you.
Okay, who has the question? I'll answer the questions.
Okay, but we'll end for now, Irene. But
Sure,
then
and if
people can
folks
stay.
want to leave, yes, and thank you all.
Okay, so we've got Steve and Beth would like to say something. I think Beth is first, actually. Let's have Beth go first.
And Deb, okay.
Beth.
Oh, Beth. Okay, Beth.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can, sweetie.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. And I can even see your beautiful face.
Hi. So I was listening to NPR yesterday, and it was Snap Judgment. I feel like I'm the only person that can cry like when I listen to NPR almost daily.
Oh, no. I've got my driveway all the time.
That's deep radio. But so the Snap Judgment that was on, it was talking about saying words that you can't take back. And this year has been the most anxiety-filled year, I feel like, of my life. And despite being in recovery and trying to use those tools, I feel like I'm a bad sober person because I've kind of been a bit of a mess. So anyway, in this NPR show, they were talking about, the man was talking about some of the thoughts and anger that he held at his mother and the words that he couldn't take back. And when he was sharing, he was talking about I could relate because I felt like I was the mom that he was talking about because I've been snapping at my kids, and he was saying like he couldn't remember. He could remember his mom's smile, but couldn't remember what she felt like because she was so busy with work and with this, got to do this and got to do that. And I feel like I've spent this whole year like grinding through life and being like I'm on pills because my anxiety, like I feel like I'm having a heart attack like 5 times a day. And because I'm trying to get by so I can, you know, keep the stuff going. And I don't want to be that person. You know, I want my kids. I want to be present. I don't want, you know, there's a saying that says the man that dies with the most toys still dies. And I want my kids to know and feel my smile and know my joy. I want to feel that. But I'm afraid of getting stuck back into the rat race when this thing continues. And I'm afraid even now sometimes with all of this free time, I still have been like, ah. And I don't want to be that person anymore. So the question.
So let me speak to that. Let me speak to that, Beth. Beth, I don't think there's any of us that can't relate to that right now. You're a single mom with 2 very, very young children, and it's not like you have a really big trust fund you're sucking off of, right?
Fair enough.
Why wouldn't you be scared right now? I think instead of being a but, it needs to be an and. I'm terrified right now that I won't be able to feed my kids. I'm terrified that I won't be able to keep a roof over their heads. And I want to laugh with them. It's an and, hon. You're not being a bad, sober person. You're being what's called a human being. This is scary. And what world are we giving your kids? What world are we giving my grandkids? You know, what are we doing? None of us know. Why wouldn't we be afraid? It's because we're human, hon. So put your face in a pillow when the kids can't hear you and scream as loud as you can because there's so much frustration and energy in your body. And you can write a letter to your higher power and say, this sucks. I don't want it like this. Let it rip. Instead of holding it in, let it purge on the paper. I'll let you use my higher power because it's big enough to hold your anger and your fear. We're all there. But the problem we get into is that's what anxiety is. We're trying to lock it down. We're trying to lock it down. One of the things I said the soul wants to do is express. Depression is depress. Express is to let it blow out, but you let it blow out where it needs to go. And honey, there's not a mom on the planet or a dad who has not snapped at their children. I get it's not the Hallmark thing, but you haven't killed them. They're eating on a regular basis, right?
They're not duct taped yet.
They're not duct taped. I saw the best meme on Facebook the other day where some woman said something about, if any of you are quarantined out there without children, could you talk dirty to me? Could you tell me what it's like? Because it just feels so fabulous to be quarantined without your kids, right? Yeah. Breathe, sweetheart. I'm glad you shared it. And there were other people who recognized and could relate. And somehow we make it. One day at a time, honey, we make it. And that's where we have to stay. And the recovery program has certainly taught us that. We stay in the day. You're a great mom. I have so many videos of you being so silly with the kids and stuff. And I know that you're afraid that you might be repeating some of your history with your kids. That's not who you are. You're showing up so regularly, so regularly. You rock, honey. Was there somebody else there, Uma, that wanted to talk?
Yes, Steve, if you're still on the call.
Is that Steve Morrison?
Yes.
It is. Hi, Irene.
Hi. I'm looking for your face, Steve. Where are you?
You'll see the light shining off my head.
No, I see the light shining out of your heart.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to say, earlier that you were talking about when you were in South Africa or at 19, or you're the comparison of 19 to 74. And you're worried about, not looking like a really hot therapist online or something. It's like, it's that old thing about, you're just a beautiful woman. And I just want to acknowledge that. And I just think I'm blessed to be sitting here talking to you in this way. But the thing I really wanted to mention was, you asked a question a little right near the end about, how do I feel from the neck down? What's going on? And it's amazing. The first word I wrote actually was calm.
Nice.
And I kind of, I breathed into that. And what I realized was that I'm not sure exactly where you are in your house, but I think you're upstairs in the,
Yep.
And so the calmness really comes from, I don't know most of these faces. I mean, David, and there's like half a dozen people that I recognize, but the calmness really comes from your presence, David's presence, and that physical place on the planet, which I showed up to in 1993. I mean, it's that long ago. It's 27 years ago. And that sense of, even though I don't know all these wonderful people, my guess is that most of them have spent at least a Saturday and a Sunday, or a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, or something at that physical place in your presence, and David's about somewhere. And that just brings great calm to me, that, that's a place that I finally learned how to face some fears, breathe, start writing, all the things that you talked about, just the rudimentary things to do to feel better about myself and feel better about the world. So this was a wonderful hour plus time to be back in that place, in that energy with you. And, it's, I just wrote, it's safe that I am in Irene and David's presence at Pathways. So that's how I feel like I'm there now with you. So that's really a good thing. And I'm not going to talk dirty to anybody, but I'm fortunate enough to be here just with Diane, and it's an adjustment for sure, but I think we're doing pretty well. She certainly could speak to that, but it's a weird time for sure. But thank you for your presence. Thank you for the Pathways presence, and just thank you to all.
Oh, Steve, and thank you for all the years and years of support that you gave David and the men's group, and the way you've worked with men. Steve's carried on Dave's retreats after Dave retired, and so you are a blessing to the planet. Thank you, my friend. So Uma, where are we, sweetie?
We have a question from Julie.
From Julie Powell. Hi, sweetie pie.
Hi, I'm gonna, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I have so much compassion, and I thank everyone for showing up, because it feels like such a beautiful connection on a Sunday morning. I am having a dual experience where clinically working a lot with clients around this. So I'm only talking about COVID-19 for hours at a time with clients, and then feeling some compassion fatigue for the people that I have in my life personally, including myself. This weekend I took off, and now already in 2 days off, I'm feeling, hearing other people really struggle with the children. I just can't even imagine what other people are going through. I have two beautiful Great Dane babies that are keeping me in my heart and crazy, but I have like guilt about and feeling helplessness around physically doing anything for anyone. I hear, I hear someone saying that they need something, and I want to go give it to them, and we're not allowed. I can't see that person. I can't hug that person. So there's like this constant cycle that I guess I'm going to go throughout my weeks. And I'm going to have to structure that, which is, I'm getting there, but that guilt and helplessness of not being able to help people, and the guilt that I feel that having such safety in my own space. Yeah.
I hear you, honey. And guilt says we broke a rule. So what rule is it you think you broke? And just have it noticing.
Ooh.
And you might want to just journal on that. Guilt says we broke a rule. So you have to ask yourself, what's the rule that I broke? Who wrote that rule, and is it still a belief that I have? I'll tell you what I do, and this was another thing I thought. I didn't want to learn how to text, right? Because I didn't have teenagers, and my friend said, you really need to learn how to text, and I did a few years ago, right? So now that I've learned how to text and I don't do anything else, I never look at my email anymore. I forget I have voicemail, right? But one of the things I do with text that people love is when I do my after I do my journaling in the morning, I get up pretty early and I do prayers and meditation. I do my journaling probably about at least four times a week. I send text to people and I say, thinking of you, sending you love, thinking of you, sending you angels, thinking of you. I can't tell you how much people appreciate that. And it makes me feel good. It's kind of like my text prayers. You know, I just let people know that I'm thinking of them. And I've got WhatsApp, so I can send them around the globe for free. There are things we can do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Just letting people know that we're touched, that we're thinking of them and we're sending them love.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I think that's it, Uma. Are we good?
We have one more person if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Okay,
Who's
Sandy.
there?
Sandy, go ahead.
Is that Sandy Zimmerman?
Yeah. Hi, Irene.
Hi, sweetie. Let me find you.
I love you and David too so much. Thank you for doing this. But I have a question. Do you find that because you have a strong spiritual background and practice, like, are you calmer, do you think, than most people right now? And, and how do you deal with it? Because
oh my God, if you could have heard me yesterday, David, tell him I was bitch. Well, oh my God, I was bitch on steroids yesterday. Let me just say this to you, Sandy. Sandy, I know the goal, right? I know when I'm off the goal, but oh my God, I was so off the goal yesterday. I was so wound up about doing this.
What about like the
right, Dave?
But the COVID piece, like, you know, I get what you're saying, David. The COVID piece, because, you know, I talk to people who are in, you know, such, like, they're so contracted and they're in so much fear, and there's a lot of, you know, like attacking going on and judging other people for what they're doing and calling people morons. And I'm kind of a calm person to begin with. And because I've had the course for 20 years, I'm actually pretty calm. And, but sometimes I actually feel bad and guilty being calmer than some of my friends. And sometimes I don't know how to react, you know. I mean, there are definitely people in my life that are really negative and really attacking, and I kind of usually just distance myself from that because I don't really want to listen to that. But
sure.
But do you ever feel guilty for, because I think for me it's like my spiritual practice is like this is when I'm seeing it's real for me, like it's helped me. And I think this is like, you know, putting the pedal to the metal for me spiritually. And I know that I actually do believe my beliefs, you know, that like I'm not a body and more than that. Like, and, you know, I see people in my life that are, you know, definitely think they're just a body, and if this body gets sick, then there's nothing else beyond that, and they're freaking out.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I don't feel guilty if I feel peace and calm. I don't, you know. I think the first big teacher for me was alcoholism. Alcoholism taught me that the surrender. And when I surrendered, and, you know, alcoholism's a disease, when I surrendered to that and realized that my life opened up and I opened up to what it had to teach me, that was the big, big teaching from the 12 steps. That was the beginning of like learning that whatever's going on here. David reads every morning a prayer from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous called the acceptance prayer. That what we need to do is we need to accept what's going on. I have to like it, but I have to accept that what is. And when I did that with the alcoholism, I mean, it wasn't like, you know, I was, you know, Mother Teresa. I mean, I've been in the program 36 years, but that was a big, big teaching. So the next time, you know, fast forward, I had breast cancer. And when I got the diagnosis that I had breast cancer, and I have to be real clear about that, it was early stage. It wasn't like a big dramatic one, but when you get your name and cancer in the same sentence, it causes pause, you know, and in learning to like deal with the fear around that. But the first thought that came to mind was, Irene, how much did you learn from your alcoholism when you thought that was the end of the world, when you surrendered to your alcoholism? I thought it was the end of the world. I could never like play with anybody or have fun ever again. I'd have to white knuckle it. And it's been the biggest blessing, the single biggest blessing in my life. And so I knew that there was going to be a lot to learn from the cancer. And it was all about fear. Because physically I'm okay, and physically it wasn't that big a deal, and you know I chose to do some things differently. I just chose to do some things differently, and it was all about trusting my gut. I was journaling like crazy and asking my inner knowing what was mine to do, because the rule book said things very differently than the way I was doing it. But to know that there's a lesson in it. So I guess getting to this point at 74 and having had lots of things happen in my life, I'm not afraid of this COVID virus. I'm not afraid of it. You know, I told you my good friend is a doctor and she has it, and I've watched her she's getting over it now. I watched her on Facebook with it. And so I guess I've right-sized it. I really don't think that's the way I'm going out. And the other thing is, it's just not the way I'm going out. I just know that. I don't want it. I don't want to be sick, you know. I don't want a fever. But I think there's accumulation of life experiences, and you either have signed up that you believe that there's a bigger picture than all the immediate stuff we're looking at, or you're just flying around in terror around the immediate stuff. And I know that we all have the answers inside of us. The people that I see who are panicked are not going inside. They don't trust themselves, you know. They want a doctor to give them pills. They want the liquor stores open. There's stuff in their faces. Not that I don't play that game, you know, but they're just running. And that's what I think goes on with a lot of people as they age. They're running as fast as they can from aging. And aging's another big transition too, you know, about, we know what the end game is for aging. But I get it, Sandy, but the only thing that I heard you say that sounded inappropriate or not useful was your guilt about it. Be an example. Be a loving example of what's another way of looking at this. Stand in your truth and be an example of, you know, I hear your pain, but that's not where I'm coming from. And you have to protect yourself. I can't watch the television right now because, you know, my team's not in charge. So I cannot watch the TV right now because I become definitely not a calm person. Hope that was helpful, Sandy.
It was, yeah. I mean, I like the idea of, you know, being a light worker too, like, you know,
yes,
yeah, like anchoring the light for people.
Yes.
And, you know, yeah, because I love that idea. I feel like if I can just, you know, anchor the light, even for the people in my house or my friends that I chat with, and they see that I'm calm, hopefully, you know, that's helping.
Absolutely. In the 12-step program, we'd say that be the power of example. You may be the only power of example of sobriety somebody may meet or know. And it's not, you don't do it in a self-righteous way, like, oh, follow me because I have all the answers. It's just be who you are. Mm-hmm. Be who you are is the answer, because you do have something to offer, because there's another way to see this. I know there are blessings in this because that's my spiritual belief. And I think some of these blessings are hard to find right now. You know, some of these blessings are really tricky to find right now. But my dad, before he left the planet at 94, a couple of years ago, he said, Irene, we've watched so many things. He went through the Depression. He was in World War II. He said, we always believed that this was the end of it all. And we found out that there was light at the end of it. Okay, I think you guys have had enough of my mouth today. So I Love you all, and thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.